past, we've invited speakers on water issues from Sierra Club and Water Legacy. We are here facing 4 years of federal hostility to the ideas of addressing global climate change. From exiting the Paris Climate Accord, though a shout out to Michael Bloomberg, who's going to keep paying for it, to denying electric car subsidies, to pursuing more fossil fuel extraction. So where does that leave us, and what do we do now? The Climate Action Team has invited 2 speakers to join us to consider our options. Carolyn Ham of Third Act, Minnesota. It's a community of Minnesotans over age 60 united to create a sustainable future for our planet and safeguard our democracy. And Kathryn Ringham of Elder Climate Action, whose mission is to mobilize elders throughout the United States to address climate change while there is still time to protect the well-being of our grandchildren and future generations. I'm pleased to welcome them both to this multi-generational service, and there will be opportunities for all ages to participate. I want to say that Kathryn and I go back a long time. We're both trained by the Climate Reality group that Al Gore organized some years ago, and it's so good to have you here. Now I'm going to ask Azola Rosenfeld to introduce our ethical explorers. We've got 2 youth participants, and they will start us off.
Hi again. Thank you very much for coming today and for that wonderful introduction. I think the plan was we're going to sit on the steps. How do you guys feel? All right. So I'm very excited that we have the opportunity for the kids the youth of FUS, to get to share some of their thoughts. And once again, I appreciate our E-Squared emissaries bravely coming up to chat about such an important topic in a setting that we're all present in, of all ages. So we have a couple questions here that I think we decided you guys were going to split them. Was that the plan? Okay, no. Well, however we want to do it, however we would like to do it, and that plan is subject to change. But so I have just some questions here that we thought were good starting points for what is climate change? Why are we dealing with it? How does it make us feel? And then we're going to talk more about, as the questions continue, what do we do about it? So one of the first questions we have here is, what do you like about nature? Why is it important to take care of it?
I really like nature because it's just fun to hang out with it. It has a lot of activities you can do, like ice skating, climbing trees, and it's also very beautiful, and there's a lot of animals. And I think it's important to take care of it because we aren't the only people on this planet, or only things on this planet, and there's a lot of other things on this planet we're actually here before us, so we need to take care of that and stuff.
I hear that. Did you have a thought? No? Yeah, yes we do.
I really like climbing trees, and then also near the very start of summer when you wake up at 6 o'clock and there's sun outside.
Yes, we're missing that right about now, I think. I also realized if I did not introduce who's up here, I am so sorry. You want to say your name?
I'm Misha.
That's Misha.
I'm Ren.
That's Ren. Awesome. So how do you feel when you see trash on the ground or other pollution? And how do you think it even got there in the first place?
I think it's pretty annoying to just walk around and it's just random trash on the ground. It's just kind of annoying, and it kind of just ugh. Why is there trash on the ground? And it's just yeah.
Yes, I hear you. You have thoughts?
Yeah. It makes me feel really sad because that's kind of endangered our climate. And I also think it's got there, people could either threw it on the ground or it blew from trash cans.
Yes, and I'll add to that. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's big businesses that are adding to the litter that we see and the pollution that we encounter all the time. But definitely, individuals as well. Got to make sure you're not just leaving your trash all over. All right, so we are going to continue with our discussion, but the kind of format I think we said is like there's going to be a little bit of back and forth, and so as you guys have further thoughts or comments or even more questions that come up, I think we will keep the mic here, and I'll just put it down, and then we can kind of keep.
So
Oh no.
We have to share.
Oh, apologies. I thought you had another one. Never mind. We're not going to keep the mic here, but we will be here, and the conversation will continue. Thank you, guys.
All right, excellent. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to again turn to Carolyn and Kathryn. And so could you please describe your organization briefly and its role in adapting to our climate warming emissions?
So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me here today. I was sharing with Rick earlier that as a child, I used to dance in the Unitarian Church in Madison, which is designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. So I kind of feel like I've come home here. So thank you. So Third Act was started by Bill McKibben. If any of you are familiar with him, he's a well-known, world-known climate activist. And he's really tapping into the energy of folks who are in the third act of their lives, i.e., us. And trying to bring the energy and the resources and the wisdom to the climate fight. Here in Minnesota, we have our Third Act working group, and we started in 2023. We have about 240 members now. Should have mentioned that nationally there's about 70,000 members, to give you a sense of the size of us. And we have three main campaigns that we are working on. One of them is to advance fossil-free finance, which is kind of a tongue twister, but what it means is we have to get the banks and the insurance companies out of the business of helping the fossil fuel industry. So we're bringing pressure on those entities, the banks, the insurance companies, the investment brokers, to stop giving the money to the fossil fuel industry. We also have our Power Up Communities campaign, which is really focused on our locally, statewide, in the Power Up or advocating at the Public Utilities Commission. So in case you don't know, the Public Utilities Commission is the state body that approves new energy projects, new transmission lines, unfortunately new pipelines, as well as electrical rates and that sort of thing. And so we believe that the public needs to be far more engaged at the Public Utilities Commission, especially to speed this transition to clean energy, because that is the exciting thing. We're going to talk about that. And so we need to be there present. So that's another campaign. Our third campaign, which is a little bit less right now, and you'll understand why, was both safeguarding democracy, still is safeguarding democracy, but was focused on the election. So we worked very hard, did not get the result we wanted. However, we did activate a lot of people, and we're excited to keep moving forward.
Thank you, Carolyn. Kathryn.
And I also thank you for the opportunity to be here, for the warm welcome. To join Carolyn, we call Third Act our demographic cousins. And your wonderful multi-generational community here today to share information and resources about the existential crisis that faces our planet, and we all know that is the climate crisis. And Kathryn did a good job of kind of setting the context, but this last week, as we all know, has been a little bit of a wind, particularly with the expected flurry of consequential executive orders by our new president. Our country appears to be beset by a polycrisis of ethical, legal, and spiritual issues, with a leader who is severely testing the bounds of his power and at times even the Constitution. In this decisive decade, it is discouraging and beyond disappointing that our current president believes the climate crisis is a hoax and a scam. Kathryn went over some of the changes that have happened this week, so I will skip those. But one of the things is that he might start to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. And the fallout from all of these changes that are swift will be felt across the globe, in every corner of America, and here in Minnesota, where we have worked tirelessly to protect our communities and build pathways to a better future. So I suspect that me, along with many of you, are dazed, angry, and or heartsick. And what to do with these worries and fears in the face of these threats, and how to get past the fight, flight, and freeze reactions to this dramatic and confusing time. Well, one answer is to join climate organizations to enhance your individual efforts to the level of collective work to bring the me to the we of climate change. Elders Climate Action is a national organization founded in 2014 with a focus and a mission to encourage elders to inform, inspire, and engage others to take action on the climate crisis, the environmental challenge of our time. The mission of Elders Climate Action is to mobilize elders throughout the U.S. to address climate change while there is still time to protect the well-being of our grandchildren and future generations. Our elevator speech, a little shorter, is in the face of climate change, we empower older adults to be good ancestors, working together to preserve our beautiful earth for future generations. Few things that are embedded in our chapter. The first thing is that we are nonpartisan. Secondly, we were inspired by the question by Jonas Salk asked, are we being good ancestors? We believe that taking the long view, that is the seventh generation thinking, on issues adds values and wisdom. And beyond the words in the mission statement, we believe elders are in a good position to make a difference and transform climate fear into climate actions. Elders bring their voices, reflecting their life experiences, resources, their voting record, their civic engagement, and their time. As Laura Carstensen, Stanford Center on Longevity said, older adults are the only natural resource that is increasing on the planet. True. We want to focus on known solutions that are already here. Since we're the first generation to feel the effects of climate change, and given our age, are probably going to miss some of the worst results that are baked into the forecast. But we're working hard to leave a legacy of hope. We are not willing to put the burden on our children and especially our grandchildren to fix it. We believe that collective action is important to address the scale and the timetable that will be necessary. We partner readily with everyone, and we've done quite a few things with Third Act and plan to do more. And lastly, we support climate justice, youth initiatives, and the need to care for ourselves and one another. One of my favorite quotes is, I wouldn't change my grandchildren for the world, but I wish I could change the world for my grandchildren.
Thank you.
One more thing. Our local chapter began in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, and like Third Act, we draw from our national base, but bring forward a Minnesota focus. Our chapter started with the intention of creating a friendly home base for meaningful individual and collective actions, and after 4 years, we have many moving parts. I'll just run through a few. We have engaging and motivating speakers at monthly meetings, a book club to sharpen our climate literacy, a monthly gathering to write postcards and advocate or send thanks, and bring topics and skills to write letters to the editor, a 5-part class on climate, understanding and acting on climate change. We have a brand new subgroup that's focusing on native and pollinator gardens. We have 4 working teams, which are our energy sources, and one of our newest traditions is giving out Good Ancestor Awards to community spirit people at our annual grandparent gathering in September.
Great. All right, thank you. I know our time is moving along here. Can you tell us what gives you hope at this moment regarding curbing the impact of climate change?
So we had to throw this in, right? After all that, we had to throw this in. And so I'm going to give you a lot of facts, which normally I would never do, but there's some really exciting facts that I think will lift your spirits. So what gives me hope is, first of all, people, right? All the people in this room, Wangari and all her fellow women, people give us hope. But I'm going to focus on economics, technological advances, and other governmental agencies, because the United States government is not the only player in the world. So first of all, the economics of solar energy will drive fossil fuel consumption down far more quickly than we ever imagined. The cost of solar panels has dropped 90% since 2009. Solar energy is now the cheapest form of energy, and that has led to its incredible growth. The Department of Energy predicts that U.S. solar energy will increase 75% between 2023 and 2025. So just to give you a sense of how fast this is happening, it is exciting. The world, driven by China, is installing a gigawatt of solar energy every day. And a gigawatt could power 750,000 houses, just to give you a sense of how solar is just exploding. Here's some examples of what's happening because of that. Diesel fuel demand in Pakistan has dropped 30%, due in part to people buying solar panels to power their homes and businesses rather than diesel generators, because the electricity is always going down. You got to have a diesel generator. No, now you can have you just buy one panel. You don't have to connect it to everybody. You buy one panel and you've got power. India is now the third largest generator of solar power in the world. Battery power capability is also growing, because that's what you always hear. Well, the sun doesn't shine. That's right, the sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day, and that's why we have batteries. California, which remember represents the 5th largest economy in the world, is now capable of producing more solar energy than the energy it needs on a regular basis. And then uses the battery power to help meet the demand. It will use 25% less natural gas than last year. Can you imagine a 25% drop in demand in 1 year? I mean, that is incredible. Then in terms of technology, we're looking at iron air batteries that may help. We're looking at hempcrete, which will be used, instead of concrete, you use hemp and you use less carbon. Also just want to point out, again, U.S. government's not the only entity, right? So in Minnesota, we are mandating that utilities use 100% clean energy by 2040. 23 other states have passed similar mandates. So all of the utilities in those states are going to have to be meeting that. There's international accountability. Europe is going to phase out new gas cars by 2035. And beginning this year, Europe is going to phase in requirements for large companies to disclose their emissions and those of their suppliers. And that's important because we got to make sure there's still pressure on those corporations to do the right thing, even if the federal government is not going to come through. I'm going to stop there, but I just want you to realize that this is exciting stuff. The economics cannot be reversed. It's the cheapest. Our mission is we just got to make it happen faster. It's going to happen quickly, but we need to make it happen even faster.
So I think you've already answered part of this, but given the federal stated intention to drill, baby, drill, is your focus changing?
Okay, yes. Yes, it is changing. But first of all, in terms of drill, baby, drill, it's important to acknowledge that the U.S. remains a petrostate. Under the Biden administration, oil and gas drilling hit record levels, while at the same time, they did a lot to protect other areas. And Trump's second term will inevitably slow the pace of U.S. climate action. We are in uncharted waters. But Gina McCarthy, former EPA administrator and manager of America's All In, said recently, no matter what Trump may say, the shift to clean energy is unstoppable and our country is not turning back. The underlying momentum, yay, yes, yes. The underlying momentum and progress made by the Inflation Reduction Act will continue to propel us forward. Even if the leadership is going the other way, America is still committed to a safe and prosperous future. We also know that lawyers will probably be very busy, so locally, I think supporting the MCEA, which is the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, will also be important. with our chapter in bandwidth, we're going to focus on a few things to go forward. The first is that we are going to continue to defend the work of the Inflation Reduction Act. It turns out that in Minnesota, there's already 340 projects that have been completed. 100% Minnesota has just released a report that's on their website that where you can go to an interactive map where they will explain exactly where these projects are and what they are doing. Minnesota has received $4 billion to work on these things, so that's pretty hopeful. Our chapter has always kind of felt that it's important to think globally but act locally, but we're suspecting that given the federal government, there will be more action at the state and local level. And we're anxious to begin wearing our new green vests. We have one in the audience. Thank you, Cass. To show up at the state capitol and in local meetings. We all feel lucky that we're very lucky to live in Minnesota, which has been a very progressive and above average state in terms of climate policy. Our chapter in the past has focused on a group called Pray for Angels to encourage bipartisan discussion, and they give you the tools and the inspiration to do that, so we are planning to do more of that. And because of this high need for collaboration and consensus and compromise, I think our legislative team is going to be choosing things, bills that have a pragmatic and less dogmatic approach to maintain the momentum and getting more bipartisan support. It turns out that the Republicans actually do support next generation geothermal energy, so we see that going forward. Nuclear energy, stopping the moratorium in Minnesota, for example. Data centers, permitting reform, and cutting the endless red tape and environmental analyses to make them shorter is also recommended. We also see, as Carolyn, I think, mentioned, that there probably will be more effort coming from cities, states. There is an organization called America is All In that brought together tribal nations, businesses that started in the first Trump administration, and that'll be resurrected. And then there's a group called Climate Mayors, and there's a whole slew of Minnesota mayors who are on this, have also played a crucial role to advance sustainable and better urban environments. So we can be hopeful about that. And then you mentioned about Bloomberg, so that's great. What Bloomberg said is philanthropy's role in driving local, state, and private sector action is more crucial than ever, and we're committed to leading the way.
So there's good news, and I'm afraid our time has run out. So the good news is that these two are going to join us after lunch for another, you'll hear about it, another workshop, so you can hear more and you can ask your questions. But I want to thank our ethical explorers, Zola, and Kathryn and Carolyn, very much. Thank you.